not to derail the topic, but I saw an ad the other day for what's it called? Do you know the series Masterclass, where it's like I don't know, some
Yep.
Oh, yes.
some
The Hillary Clinton shit. Oh, baby. Get me where you fucking want me. Oh, yes.
I saw that shit, and I was like, okay, first of all, what are you teaching exactly?
War
Because I
crimes.
watched her pitch. Yeah, basically, yeah. It's like how to bomb Yugoslavia while fucking covering up your husband, messing about with the fucking secretary. Absolute piece of shit, but still. But yeah, my question is, what the fuck is she possibly teaching? Because if you've watched the thing, her entire pitch is like, oh, so you can be like secure in yourself and to believe that you can do it. And what is this fake motivational nonsense?
Yeah,
You're like
They're pitching it as resilience.
Okay.
She's teaching how to be resilient, which I guess because she just keeps losing. I don't know.
I guess, yeah, against Bill's sexual advances, maybe.
Against her own empathy and moral compass, not letting her sleep at night. That's you gotta be really resilient for that. Didn't she, like, in the actual promo video, they say something like exclusive reading of the speech that she never got to say because the bitch lost.
Yeah.
You know, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, they're squeezing every last penny they can out of her.
I swear. Dude, the funniest shit that I know this is old news now, but watching that presidential race between her and Trump and how they really tried to push that woke point really hard, despite her being like, never, being this, oh, I'm all for people of color and the LGBT and fucking, what the chauvinists and misogynists say, blah, blah. This shit, she was never about that. No. She voted against gay marriage. I don't think she's ever associated with a person of color publicly. I mean, in front of a black audience, she was like, was asked, what do you always carry in your, something you can't leave the house without, like in your purse? And she was like, hot sauce. Fucking hot sauce. Oh my god. By the way, fuck you. And I don't know anybody. I know some people who like hot sauce. I've never met a single dude or single person in my life who won't leave the house without fucking hot sauce. Get fucked.
Well, okay,
Oh
here's a cultural difference for you. Here in Texas, they sell like holsters for your hot sauce. you can carry it with you to church and go to like a barbecue place after and drench your stuff in your hot sauce that you've got in your holster.
So you can shoot up your school and then go have some fucking, I don't know.
Okay.
When the taco isn't spicy enough afterwards.
Yeah, depending where she fucking gives a talk in front of black people, it's hot sauce. Good that she didn't say fried chicken and all the other fucking insane shit.
Yeah.
In front of the Asians, she's like, what are Asians like? Yes, I cannot leave my house without a math book and 7 calculators. In front of the Mexican, she's like, oh man, I cannot go absolutely anywhere without the tequila. And one can make a whole series out of that. That would, for example, be a masterclass. How to be privileged upper class type of racist in front of people. It would be very spicy, no pun intended.
No wonder she lost, man. It was so fucking transparent. Her entire vibe was like, like I'll publicly pat a black person on the back, but I wouldn't want them in my gated community.
Yeah, exactly. And she's not the only one giving the master classes.
Are there other politicians?
They had George Bush on there. They've got a whole series.
What?
George W. Bush
Lord.
is giving a master class.
We should do a fucking reaction shit to that.
We should watch the
bonus
master
episode.
Class.
Isn't he a painter? Is he gonna teach us about how to paint?
Yeah, he's gonna teach us how to fucking, casually forget my war crimes. By the way, here's a puppy.
Well, howdy, y'all. It's episode 8 of the intros are hard. Shit. It's episode 8 of the Deprogram. That's hard to say. Today we are talking about billionaires. We're going to talk about Daddy Jeff. We're going to talk about your boy Elon. We're also going to talk about some stuff my American audience probably hasn't heard much about. So Hakeem and Yugopnik both have some insights about billionaires in their parts of the world. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Boys, do we want to jump in?
Sure. Before we start, though, I just want to say, I don't know why I found this so funny, but the title of the stupid doc, where we keep our stupid notes, instead of billionaires, I made a billionaire, like bullion, like the stupid thing that you use for cooking. Fuck that, that's not what's funny. But I don't know why I felt that.
Bullion.
Let's melt them down for gelatin, for the gelatin. I don't know why.
Do human beings contain gelatin? Is that a thing? I guess
of course.
Everything. Any breakdown. Gelatin's usually made out of the tissue and like joints and whatnot.
Oh, that's right. Because I know that like Jello was originally made from horses or something like that. I don't know.
Probably. I don't remember.
You make gelatin from pigs mostly, and from like parts of a pig.
Yeah. You can make gelatin from a billionaire. A pig, a billionaire, what's the difference?
Don't offend pigs, bro.
All right, so before we really get into the topic, I think it's going to be important to conceptualize what $1 billion looks like, because that is such a massive number. I think people tend to just say, "Oh, it's he's a billionaire," or whatever, but that is an almost unfathomable amount of money. So let's do a little time travel here. Let's go back in time. Imagine it's way back in the time of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who was born around 4 BCE. Right? If you got a job that paid $2,000 an hour and worked 40 hours per week, 52 weeks per year, never took vacation or sick days, you ignored inflation, you never paid taxes, and you never spent a single cent, in 35 years, normal lifetime of work roughly, you would have made $145 million. That's a lot of money, but that's not really all that much compared to Daddy Jeff. Okay, let's pretend you're immortal then. Let's just pretend you keep on working. 20 years later, you'd hit 229 million. Okay, still not that much. Fast forward to the year 237 CE, and you finally hit $1 billion. It only took you 241 years of full-time work at an absurd wage, right? Like, you're not going to find a $2,000 per hour wage. By 478 CE, you would have made your $2 billionth dollar. By the year 1000, you'd have made $4.2 billion. Eventually, some guy called Columbus comes along and genocides the native population, and you've made $6.2 billion and worked for 1,504 years. A bunch of dudes in white wigs come along, decide Britain sucks, and sign a piece of paper. You've made $7.9 billion. Everyone around you has frosted tips and puka shell necklaces, and you've made $8.3 billion and worked for 2,003 years. All right, fast forward to this year. After working for 2,025 years at 40 hours per week, 52 weeks per year, no vacation, no sick days, no taxes, and never spending a single cent, you've made $8.4 billion. In 2,025 years of work, you've earned 1/33 of Elon Musk's net worth. Okay, so just to conceptualize that a little bit, 2,000 years, 1/33 of Elon Musk's worth, all right? No one earns $1 billion. So working at that rate, $2,000 an hour, you can't. It's impossible. You cannot earn physically $1 billion by working for a wage, and certainly not $263 billion. So that, to me, helps to put it in perspective of what we're talking about here. It is impossible for any human being to earn $1 billion by their labor. So if that's the case, fellas, how do people end up with these massive sums of money? How does Elon end up a multi-hundred billionaire?
My plan is NFTs. I will buy a monkey and I will put different colored teeth on it, and then in less than 2005 years, hopefully. Yeah, those screenshot apes, and probably achieve the same thing that Elon managed to in his very short, confusing South African lifestyle.
JT, what's confused? Like, this is the fundamental issue here is that you're not looking at enough inspirational, motivational Instagram posts with the Wolf of Wall Street pictures behind them.
You're right.
And you're not, this doesn't seem like a bootstrap attitude.
I don't have a grind set. Oh, that's it.
Exactly.
Mindset for the grind set.
The Sigma grinds.
Like this person you just described, like spent over 2,000 years, and they at no point invested. They at no point opened a business with thousands of employees. They at no point managed to trick the system into creating wealth for them while they sit on their ass. It's all in your limited mentality, JT. You think like a worker. You think like a wage slave. You think like one of those...
Like a sheep.
Like a sheep, billions of sheep. You gotta be the black sheep, my bro. You gotta like check out the new tech, my bro. You gotta check out the crypto, the NFT, my bro. You gotta do some online influencing, my bro. You gotta sell some very cool fucking drop shipping tutorials. Not just drop shipping, my bro. That shit is old, my bro. You can fucking do. You can sell you can drop ship courses on drop shipping and then make a course about drop shipping courses about drop shipping. Like you order a course on drop shipping from AliExpress and it gets drop shipped to you, baby boy. Okay, it's all about the grind. It's all about the hustle, my man. Not waiting for 2,500 fucking years. None of these billionaires that we're going to be discussing today were sheep like you, my bro. They were not white sheep like you, my bro.
Wolves.
They were black sheep. They were wolves. They were the bull. They were the dominating
okay,
force.
Enough.
Yes.
enough. But yeah, the general trend of this is like the point of criticism is that, like JT said, nobody makes $1 billion through their own hard work. They make it through other avenues. What are those other avenues? Usually they're reliant on two things. The first one is surplus extraction from workers, meaning that workers are not remunerated. They're not compensated. They're not compensated. Yeah, exactly. They're not compensated for their full amount of labor, right? They work 8 hours, you pay them for the equivalent of 2 hours, if not less, and then the rest of the value that they produce is then basically funneled to you, which you either just adds directly to your net worth, or you reinvest it into the circuit of capital, which then also adds to your net worth. That's one way. This somewhat hidden transaction that occurs every second of every minute of every day under capitalism. Meanwhile, on the other hand, you have things that are far more blatant. For example, wage theft. Or other contract bullshittery, you can call it, right? You're going to be paid 39-hour contracts, so we're not going to have to pay for, healthcare or your insurances of any kind, or, you kind of make them work overtime, but you don't allow them to clock overtime. Or basically just outright theft. For example, in the restaurant business, it is fairly frequent that tips, even like in American restaurants, it happens that sometimes management takes tips or portions of tips from waiting staff. So that's an example of like more catering industry or, this sort of stuff. While in manufacturing, it's more of the type of surplus extraction in a more direct sense of the word. Of course, there are many more ways that wealth is created, quote-unquote wealth. I mean, like wealth in the capitalist sense. For example, through stock or just investments in general. But you have to remember that investments more or less derive value also overall from similar methods, usually also surplus extraction. Or if it comes to things that regard international trade, then unequal exchange and trade between imperial, periphery, imperial core countries. TLDR, there's nothing ethical about capitalism, and none of this money that's made, this wealth that's created, is in any way, shape, or form earned. It's much more common that it's stolen in one way or the other. That's just my TLDR point.
And not just stolen. Very often, idiots directly put money into incredibly wealthy individuals on the basis of estimates of what their potential future value could be. I mean, 90% of the top 50 highest ranked by income and by stock value companies right now are overinflated by 200-300% because people think that eventually they're going to be worth more, and they keep dumping more and more money into it. And because of the way the market works, it proves its own model to itself when more and more people are pushing money into it. So it's kind of like a self-eating snake, which eventually has to end up eating its whole body. But until that moment, a lot of people, especially the people that jump out of owning the stock at a particularly potent and smart time, are going to be the only ones that actually make extra value out of it. I mean, yes, extremely wealthy people get there through 150 different methods, which have been a part of this system since the moment it was created. But what's very interesting about modern or late-stage capitalism, or whatever you want to call it, is that it's not even delivering on the original promises of, okay, your brilliant idea, for which afterwards, in order to develop, you exploit thousands of people. You, yes, are going to become incredibly wealthy, but at least you have given something specific and something real to the world, and that's why you deserve to be an Ubermensch superclass, which gets to live in the skies. But nowadays, because most ideas have already been developed, or like very impressive ideas that we might have and not have the current technology to do cannot actually be achieved, most corporations would just make money for the sake of money and make money out of money without even creating any value. Obviously, they're not creating any value for the employee, but not even the end customer. I mean, how many times does that dildo-shaped rocket have to fly up in the sky and then fall? How many times do they have to pitch underground electric car tunnels? How many flamethrowers do they have to sell you and call it a brilliant business idea before we realize that these people who are supposed to be the ideologues of the future and these great carriers of progress are at the end of the day a bunch of con men that are not really giving anything of substance to you except turning cash into even more cash. The last argument left in these people's pockets is at this point completely illegitimate and gone, and their usefulness, together with their parasitic nature of wealth hoarding, leaves absolutely, even in the perspective of a even capitalist, in my opinion, leaves almost no argument to be had for certain people to have this much immense wealth.
Yeah. So,
TLDR, invest in crypto. Right. Invest in crypto and the market fulfills a need. Okay, that's your TLDR. Sorry, JT, I cut you off.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, what we're basically saying is there is no such thing as an ethical billionaire, right? The only way you can make $1 billion is by exploiting others, exploiting the system, or producing something incredibly damaging to human life or the planet, like Harry Potter in the case of J.K. Rowling. but I have heard
read people, another book.
I know. I agree. But I have heard people say that of the billionaires, she's the least exploitative. And I'd be curious to hear what you guys think about that, because like she wrote a book that ended up becoming a phenomenon, and now she's a billionaire. What do we think of her?
Who, the lady that believes in magic but doesn't believe in trans people?
Yep, that's the one.
Oh, that's so fucking dude. No, she deserves the bullet only because for one reason alone. Every fucking liberal from now until the end of fucking time will always draw stupid comparisons, like political comparisons to those shitty books. All right, fucking Hillary's Hufflepuff or whatever the fuck. I don't care. Fuck off. Jesus. Read another. There's a joke. It's like, liberals don't read the theory. Think again, honey. It's a picture of.
Savage.
Oh. She's a billionaire, though?
Yeah, yep.
How?
I guess her Harry Potter empire. I mean, she's got all the movies, the spin-offs. Let me look up what she's actually worth. J.K. Rowling net worth.
Is this what garbage people read? What the fuck? I mean, okay, yeah, whatever. If you're like in third grade and you want to, expand your vocabulary.
They say roughly 1 billion in US dollars.
Yeah, well, fuck her, okay? For all the people listening, please read another book, okay? At least read Lovecraft. At least he's an entertaining racist.
Lovecraft, yeah. Yeah. His books are wacky.
Yeah, I love Lovecraft. He's one of my favorite authors. And by the way, the stupid, race and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he's a product of his time. Doesn't excuse it, I know, but don't look up what he named his cat.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That's what I'm going to say. By the way, minor tidbit, he wasn't the one that named the cat that. It was his dad. So, but that, not like it makes it any better. But he continued using the term, but he didn't originate.
Lovecraft's dad canceled.
Oh fuck. Another stupid tidbit about Lovecraft that we can return. One of the characters, especially in the general canon, the one who discovered the Necronomicon is what Lovecraft calls the mad Arab. Abdul al-Hazred is what he says. Mm-hmm. Like al-Hazred, like he's read everything. Al-Hazred. Abdul al-Hazred. This makes no fucking sense grammatically in Arabic. You can't just have a name Abdul. It's Abdul something, right? You can't just have... Right, and by the way, of course, the eternal pain of being forced to say Abdul instead of Abdul, but whatever, that's a stupid, unnecessary side tangent. Okay, billionaires. How about this? Most people are familiar with the fucking Bezoses and Musks and whatever the fuck. How about Ugopnik and I, we can talk a little bit about our brand of billionaires. Ugopnik, do you want to start us off?
Okay, yeah. So... the story of Eastern European billionaires is at the same time vastly different to that of their Western colleagues, if we can call them that, while at the end of the day not really being different at all, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like the West likes to refer to our billionaires as oligarchs, which according to Merriam-Webster implies that they have great wealth, but more importantly are in direct connection to the political elites of the country. I mean, I take no offense to this term, which is often used by Western good, legal, and kind billionaires to distance themselves from the foreign, violent, criminal billionaire. You know,
The Washington Post uses it, okay, please. It's a legitimate term.
It is, brother.
Jeff Bezos is Washington
owned by a
Post.
guy who's definitely not an oligarch. But it's kind of like, it feels to me like the nerd trying to distance himself from the jock of sorts, you know, the Western billionaire, the Eastern billionaire. And not only do I not take any offense on this, but I would rightfully prefer for it to be expanded to the Western billionaire mass as well, at least a very large majority of it, because the Western billionaire, as we all know, through lobbying, think tanks, and good old bribery, is very much in control, in direct control of the political elites of Western Europe, of the States or Canada, etc., etc. Places where if you're a billionaire from there, you're definitely not ever an oligarch. You know, they are the posh oligarchs and the techie oligarchs, which, as I previously said, seem to really distance themselves from a billionaire class they perceive as, I don't know, too dirty to associate with. But okay, let's call the Eastern Europeans oligarchs. So you have more than a few types of oligarchs, Eastern European oligarchs, be it the minority, which was spawned out of the rotten section of the already decaying Communist Party at the time, spreading like wildfire after the amazing liberalization in the 80s, or the later oligarchs born out of the era of transition, as we like to call it here, or the era of privatization, oh yes, as the academics like to call it.
Capitalism.
Capitalism is coming. Or like what I like to call it, I don't know, the era where nobody knew who's drinking or who's buying the drinks. So Russia's first millionaire, for example, legal millionaire, it was the 10th person, the Soviet Union's actually first legal millionaire, not Russians, legally was the 10th person to own a cooperative officially registered in Moscow, which was shut down later by Moscow authorities as quote-unquote amoral, dangerous to society, and contrary to socialist principles. He had started, guess what, a dating service. Yeah, an old Soviet Tinder, which he made a lot of money out of and then moved into different car services and so on. But he made his real money in computers. So since the USSR, this is a millionaire, not a billionaire. So since the USSR wasn't making computers for everyday use, he made sure to export different Soviet products en masse internationally, and in return, instead of cash, he would take PCs, which he will then later sell in the Soviet Union, which had no like consumer PCs and stuff, for insane bang on the buck. That and obviously 15 other schemes. And what came after this man, who is a small fish but deserves credit for being, the first one, is 2 decades of such money making that the stories on how they did it still circle on dinner tables to this day. I mean, the schemes varied greatly, but were mostly based around either, as I said, manipulating the very innocent virgin-like changes that came with perestroika. For those who don't know what it is, please Google it. Like, for example, insane stuff like selling junk metal was insanely profitable. Why? Because in the Soviet Union, we had a country with what? Fixed prices on everything, which made junk metal a basically useless thing because recycling didn't exist back then. It made it basically free. So why not buy insane qualities of junk metal in the Soviet Union and sell it abroad, where the banks in the beautiful, beautiful market made it cost 100 times more than what you bought it for? I think Oleg Deripaska or some other dude came up with a specific scheme. But don't get me even started on privatization, for example. Old communist enterprises, especially those dealing in natural resources, were supposed to be privatized and shared amongst workers and citizens alike. An opportunity which was taken by those more informed and those more educated to pretty much fuck over everyone else, and ended up owning every single aspect of both Russian industry, but more importantly, Russian natural resources, which, as we all know, are very vast. So 90s Russia basically was an ANCAP's wet dream. The market was God, and those educated by the Soviet Union, ironically, unfortunately, used their knowledge to rob their neighbors in bulk. You know, when you look at most of today's richest Russian billionaires, you can both find those whose parents were high-ranking party members who ended up using their privilege to gain their wealth, but also a lot of standard working class people with a loose moral compass who managed to turn a whole system on its head and make crazy money. But one thing is shared amongst all of them, which is practically eating the leftovers of the Soviet Union during the era of privatization, with the support, very important to note, of actually the Bush Foundation and the now allied Western free market brothers and sisters. And that kind of covers Russia, and more importantly, Eastern Europe. And in the Balkans, I'll be very quick. You had a kind of similar picture, but because of the wars, most billionaires born out of the 90s were close allies to the different emerging nationalist figures for whom they ran the new banks, laundered blood money, and directly looked over, whole sections of different industries. Basically, they're capitalist apparatchiks, right? Something that a lot of them very wisely ended up owning after the dictators were either arrested, killed, or put in prison. And then they used those enterprises that were built during the war era, post-socialist war era, to, turn one company into 5, turn those 5 into 50, turn those 50 into 500, and turn from millionaires to literal billionaires. So yes, there is a bit of a difference between the Eastern European and the Western billionaire, but at the end of the day, most of them share the ideal and the lack of scruples, which allows them to never be satisfied by either how much they have, how much they can potentially have, and that hunger, that innate anti-human, in my opinion. Hunger is what leads most of these people to turn from just successful businessmen into these people who, in Russia's case, after the Soviet Union fell, owned more than 60% of the economy, and I think it was like only 40 people.
Wow. I'd like to add on that a bit, something interesting to mention with the Eastern European variety, or just generally, because I'm going to tie it into like the West Asian, North African example of billionaires as well in a little bit. But I remember I actually have personal experience with a person, with someone who became massively wealthy through this like post-socialist collapse and through basically bullshit. I'll just give you a quick rundown. This was a guy that I don't know directly, but I happened to meet him through some medical bullshit. Basically, when Czechoslovakia was transitioning towards the late 80s from socialism to capitalism, everything fucking fell apart, right? Mass privatization, quote-unquote shock capitalism. People lost jobs, lost homes, and prices of shortages across everywhere, and prices fucking through the roof. Inflation, every shitty thing that could happen to a population basically did happen. And this guy happened to basically have a business that had many cars, basically, many vans. And what he decided to do was, during this collapse period, he would drive across the border from Czechoslovakia into Austria and buy up things that people need in Czechoslovakia that people can't get a hold of. Simple things like diapers and women's sanitary products, even sometimes like basic foodstuffs, shit like that. And he would basically drive across, fill these vans with very cheap like Austrian goods, or even beyond, and then he'd come back into Czechoslovakia and he'd sell them at massive markups, basically because these people have nowhere else to go. If it's either you get diapers from this guy or you don't get diapers at all, basically. So people would fork up the money one way or another, and he became massively, like stupidly wealthy. I'm pretty sure he's a millionaire by today's standards, by basically being a piece of shit and playing on the local scarcity of the population. And if you look into history, vast majority of billionaires are like this, or their families at least, those who come from money. Either they themselves did something horrible to get it, or an ancestor did, or the very smallest minority is, oh, they got lucky. But the vast majority of them were, through violence, acquired land or property or wealth or what have you, and then lived off of rent or played off of scarcity or forcibly made scarcity situations in which they can price gouge, etc., etc. Now, this leads, I think, into the discussion of my area of billionaires. It's a little different from Eastern Europe, and it's in between the two. You have the two roads. The first one is through government nepotism and basically, what's it called? Corruption, where you have some guy who's usually probably the head of some local ministry, and because he has all the power within this ministry, he can consolidate power, get the proper assets and connections and whatnot, and then start his own little business that he gives preferential contracts, government contracts to. His own business, and he'd get massively wealthy like this. So corruption, nepotism, that's more common, for example, in modern Iraq. It is very common, very fucking common. You cannot meet a person who within the government that doesn't have some fucking stupid scheme like this. And on the other side, you have people from very old established families that have been wealthy since Ottoman times, basically. So this maybe they used to be a large landowning family during Ottoman times more than 200 years ago, and then they turned their rent-seeking wealth into capital that they basically moved into basic industry at some level. Usually food production is a very common one, and then they've just kind of remained wealthy that way. These are the two. Yeah, a little not as exciting as the Eastern European example.
No, it is very interesting. But like, for example, in specifically where you live, there was obviously a 10+ year active conflict zone, etc. And
they stole the shit.
Did you see a lot of, obviously Westerners pillaged your country completely, but did you see a lot of local individuals taking advantage of this situation and making great wealth for themselves during that time?
Dude, illegal oil selling and shit like that was insane. Like shit. By the way, it still happens. I don't want to pretend like this doesn't happen, but this is a thing. Like a guy, again, like I said, exactly, some dude with a local position in some shitty ministry will have a little bit of power under himself, and this will be like a way of getting a little more wealth to him. But usually it's the bigger fish, let's say, who would monopolize contracts, like government contracts in themselves. That's a very common thing. Another thing, the capitalism in these parts isn't as highly developed as in Western Europe and North America. So what you end up with is usually, for example, Iraq had nationalized industry before. So after the illegal invasion aggression of the United States against Iraq, the formerly nationalized industry was loosely privatized, but there was still a very small selection of them, right? Mm-hmm. So there wasn't really much competition between them. So they had every push to be able to monopolize whatever market they have, to cannibalize whatever revenue that they could get, whatever profits can be generated, without caring too much for competitive pressure. Like, for example, what would exist in Western Europe. So in a weird way, capital is a lot more centralized, but it's this centralization of capital is a result of formerly nationalized industry. And you see very weird things, like sometimes some industries you start seeing this weird proliferation, like IT is a big one, where you see many new companies pop up, so there's diversification in that field. But then other sides, usually the more traditional mining, petrol, natural resources, stuff like that, it becomes even more consolidated.
Because for those you need insane amounts of capital to even get started, let alone continue to upkeep. And then in the cases where there is corruption involved, obviously, to pay off the right people and stay in business, while the smaller ones who cannot afford to pay up cannot compete with you, quite literally. So it's literally the bigger fish eating the smaller fish, as cliche as it sounds. Very often outside of the West, I mean in the West as well, but outside of the West, it's literally you try to get it capital, and then you make as the bulls and the lions like to say, make the money work for you. But no, it literally is such a case, because a lot of us like don't have many sections of the world don't, for example, have these massive investment funds and hedge funds, which will actually come to your little startup where you made your little app and be like, okay, we're going to throw millions or even billions at you in order to develop this, because we see, for example, potential, etc., etc. There's nobody that's going to come and listen. Okay, nowadays maybe there's nobody going to come and listen to a fucking Bosnian app developer. No, he knows that he needs to turn his dad's taxi business of 10 cars into 100, and then hope that his son can turn it into a fleet of 1,000, and then with that money start the bus business, and then from the bus business maybe buy a few planes and expand in that direction. The business logic here is very different than what I noticed with a lot of Americans that I worked with, and a lot of them that I studied with. Even the logic is very different. It's not quote unquote entrepreneurial, even though nowadays they're selling it down our fucking throats every fucking day. Everybody's an entrepreneur / CEO of a startup on fucking LinkedIn, which by the way is the worst website ever fucking designed. But yeah, the way the money and wealth accumulation kind of works is similar, but at the same time a bit different. Like the basics are the same. Make capital, pay your employees as least as possible, but the way, the path on getting to your first million might be a bit different, or your first billion, but growing it afterwards is the same, be it in probably Baghdad, Moscow, or Houston, you know?
I'm hearing a lot of communist talking points here today, okay? You guys just don't want to embrace the new trend of polywork that millennials are all about, okay?
I'm super up for it, bro, man. The polywork people are so weak. They're like, what, 10 people in a room? Man, no, in one bed there should be 10 people. That's how you fucking do it. That's the grind. That's how you save money.
I love how literally I've never heard this term. I've never heard anybody talk about wanting to work multiple jobs, but they're like, oh, the cool hip new millennials.
Oh yeah, they're constantly putting out stories like that. Like, millennials don't want to own anything. They love it. They love not owning a home. They want to rent forever and have 5 jobs. Like, no, we don't.
And I love also this weird fucking this pervasive idea still that millennials are somehow like 19-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, most millennials I think are like into their working lives. Some of them have a lot of them have fucking kids.
Yeah, the oldest millennials are 40 years old.
But yeah, so that's a very, very good point. Sorry to derail my stupidity. I was thinking as well, the general ideas of billionaires, how they go about presenting themselves, is also very interesting. I think it can merit some attention, we could say.
Yeah, so Hakeem, what you were saying about how these billionaires present themselves, I think is super critical to understanding the role they play in society today, especially in places like the U.S., which has like a billionaire worship mentality. So like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, the rest of the space boys, they always try to present themselves as like real life Tony Stark, like Iron Man. Like they have these amazing, groundbreaking inventions. When in reality,
none of which they've worked on, by the way. They just fucking throw some money at an engineer and be like, make it work.
By groundbreaking, it breaks on the ground. Then yes, ground.
Yeah, like Elon Musk's tunnels like collapsing, and it's like, yeah, congratulations, Elon. You made trains worse in every possible way. They can carry fewer people, and people die in these cars that like always burst into flames underground with no escape tunnels. So great work. But yeah, I think the image thing is very important to them. They're constantly doing this race to be seen as the greatest potential savior of humanity. Like Elon Musk has always been talking about, hey, we're going to get humanity off this rock. We're going to go to Mars. You know, despite Mars, of course, being far less habitable than the rock we currently inhabit, and we would never be able to terraform it to a fraction of the livability of Earth. But now you've got people like Bezos getting in on it. He went up on his rocket recently. Congratulations again to the billionaires for doing something that the public sector did, 50 years ago.
50, more like 80. What the fuck?
Jeez, yeah. It's absurd. But yeah, I think that is the most important thing to understand about these people. They're not Iron Man. They're not doing anything groundbreaking. They're doing things that have been done before at tremendous cost, and they just want to be seen as heroes, and that's all there is to it, really.
Exactly. They keep raising the bar, and indirectly that quote-unquote bar that people, especially shills, perceive them as to be raising, kind of indirectly influences every single one of our lives in kind of a not only financial way, but a bit of a different like lifestyle way, if you know what I mean. Like to me, for example, I find it super interesting that the modern wedding, right, life's signature happy day, well, Americans specifically spend on average for weddings 3 times more in the last 5-6 years than they did in the previous 15. And like nobody believes that marrying couples are happier because they spend so much more on weddings now. So why do we spend so much more? And yes, this sounds like where the fuck is he going with this point? But no, listen. So why do we spend so much more? Because people at the top have so much more. So they're spending more on their own celebrations, on their own spacecraft shit. And they set the consumption standard, what academics, I think, call it that. They set the consumption standard so high that they unleash so-called expenditure cascades, which hurt people at every income level by making them feel increasing pressure to reach the higher consumption bar that those directly above them have set. So you are already alienated from your labor. You already have a fucking wife or husband that hates you. You fucking already despise the route you take every morning to your job. And when you turn on the TV, there's this person who you can never even imagine of reaching, flying up in a spaceship around the globe. So that gives you an argument. Not really an argument, that gives you such intense insecurity that it kind of forces you to overspend and overindulge in order to, in your small, minuscule way, try to keep up with the billionaires. So what JT said was extremely important, because this also, yes, this happens among us working class people and podcasters, the most working class people in the world, most difficult job I have ever heard of, but it also influences the billionaires themselves. I mean, it's like kids on a playground and who has a bigger toy, right? Or adult males and who has a bigger trunk in his car. Hey, what did you think I'm gonna say? So they're gonna continuously be inventing. They're not even inventing. They're gonna continuously be stealing concepts from sci-fis that were written 100 years ago, in order to create products or services which can outcompete their equally egomaniac billionaire competitors, quote unquote.
This is a lot of, with all this talk about lifestyle inflation, of course, none of this is very Sigma of you guys, all right? If I need to drop $15,000 on a gender reveal, and if it doesn't burn down half of California, was it worth it? Fucking stupid. All right. No. That was so stupid.
Oh shit! Oh,
you killed him.
It's okay.
I'm burning down half the city with my gender reveal.
Look, your left is so cute.
No, like how does a billionaire do gender reveal? They kidnap 2 homeless people and they take a massive syringe, fill it with paint, and then they inject red paint and blue paint into their brain, and then the gender reveal is he gives his wife the gun, and she's like, is it a boy or a girl? And he's like, shoot the left homeless guy. Bam! Shoots and his brain explodes in red, and it's a girl.
Very creative imagination, have you? I was thinking you were gonna go, type of seizure for the fucking Jacksonian March is a fucking.
You know what they
don't
say?
let Gopnik become a billionaire.
The worst. You know what's the worst boss? An ex-communist. Because he's given up on his ideals while still knowing that everything is fucked. So he's like, I might as well go the extra way. Like, fuck everybody. I will eat everyone. I am Sigma. That is Sigma. Oh, a Sigma communist is a capitalist, and a Sigma capitalist is a communist. We're onto something. This is book material, baby.
Right.
Book material.
Develop this on your own time.
Very eager for your eventual book.
Oh fuck! Oh, I can't wait for the blurb on the back.
Yeah.
Blow the brains out of homeless people. Stuff I love. All right, I was thinking this could lead to something a bit more lighthearted, a bit more fun, because we can still talk about billionaires, how much they suck. But there's a couple of arguments that you usually hear. Of course, today I'm the one with the stupid hat. Today I'm the one with the dumbass fucking Corey. The general presentation of billionaires, whenever you talk about them, you're gonna see a few bootlickers and a few fucking temporarily embarrassed millionaires of that type, who will try to bullshit argument their way into something semi-coherent. I'm gonna, throw a couple of these at you guys, and I just want to hear what you guys have to say about them. All right, the first one is, whenever you talk shit about a billionaire, they're gonna tell you, but they worked hard for it. What do you guys say?
Everyone who works hard. I mean, yeah. It's frustrating because, like, if someone is working, 18 hours a day down in a mine, he's working a hell of a lot harder than Jeff Bezos, like, who decided to sell books online. Like, the hard work argument is just an empty one to me at its face. I don't think there needs to be anything more that needs to be said. I mean, hard work is hard work. Like, one is not more deserving of $1 billion than another. So, but that's just my take. Gopnik, what do you think?
I mean, I agree completely. What is harder work and less hard work? I think that's a very ungrateful way of even looking at labor because it's so vast and so diverse. But you can never, ever tell me that even a CEO has a harder time than somebody who works in a mine, or somebody who works in a kitchen, or somebody who washes dishes, or somebody who drives a cross-country truck. Like, that's not fucking easier than that's not easier than being a CEO with no debate.
Guys,
at
please, the 30-minute online meeting that you have before your personal chef makes you makes your quinoa soaked in fucking orphan blood. Right? That's very hard work. But no, this is something to tie into this, which I really find fucking annoying. If this idea of hard work really was true, then the average Kenyan tea farmer, or the guy, the Bolivian mine worker, or any clothes worker in Bangladesh, right? These people would be multimillionaires because they work so hard. But no, fuck you. Their surplus value and the value they produce overall is being stolen, is being directly taken from them to make somebody else richer. This is a stupid fucking argument, and that's why usually once you point this out and they realize the fucking the stupidity of what they just said, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, but what I meant to say was actually billionaires, they work smarter. You're supposed to work smarter, not harder. Yes. What do you guys say about
and
that?
What does smarter mean? Make somebody else work for you. That's what they always mean. Instead
it means
of
get a loan of $1 billion from $1 million from your dad. That's what it means.
Exactly. I mean, smart usually just means sneaky, tricky, exploitative, taking advantage of other people, having no moral compass. Basically, that's what
like
smart
podcasting.
means.
Yeah, what we're doing.
Yeah, like podcasting, like us. Yeah, we're smart.
But no, what was I gonna fucking say? Yeah, what really annoys me about this working smarter idea is most of the people who quote unquote do work smart, most of the people who actually put a lot of time into education and development of their skills and whatnot, tend to not be the people who end up being massively wealthy. Bezos and Musk and the fucking Walton family, all the shit, they're not wealthy because they're intelligent. They're wealthy because they hired people who are very intelligent to basically run their businesses for them at, maybe decent wages. Maybe some of them get paid even very, very well. But an engineer that gets paid, I don't know, $140,000 a year to basically develop the new Tesla tech, meanwhile fucking Musk is worth what now, 300 billion or some shit, isn't exactly fair to the person who actually did work smart and develop themselves into what would be the technology of the future. I'm not saying that fucking Tesla is the technology of the future. What I'm trying to get across is these engineers who actually put their minds to work, and then same with everybody. Mathematicians, physicists, fucking doctors. Okay, I'm not to fucking stroke my own asshole, but but you know exactly what I mean. Like, people who do put in a lot of work don't usually end up being the ones who are the wealthiest in society. Usually it's the business types, because they find ways of taking money from other people. Because when people work smart, they quote unquote work smart. People who put in a lot of time into education and into practicing their craft, whatever it may be, usually end up making money only to the level that's possible within their own ability to work. So the harder they work within their individual capacity, efficiency, the more money they'll make, but that reaches a cap. The business types and all these people, the work smart crowd, these people work hard by taking other people's fucking money, which is why they end up being so massively, by like magnitudes, wealthier than the people who actually do the work.
An example of working smarter, quote unquote, from my part of the world is Lukoil. Most of you know that is one of the largest oil refinery and oil companies in the world. The owner, quite intelligently and through working very smart, chose not to pay his employees for 5-6 months. They started starving, and then he went to them and he was like, hey, you're starving. Let me buy those stocks that you have in this firm that the Soviet Union gave you after collapsing and privatizing, and you'll have some money to buy some tomatoes and cucumbers and actually survive. Obviously, those people starving sold their stocks for, I think it was $30 each, and that brilliant individual who worked really smart then became the owner of some of the world's largest oil fields in a matter of a few days, in a very smartly planned manner through which he quite literally starved his employees. Yeah. But
by the way, his fellow countrymen too. Let's not forget the incredibly anti-patriotic angle of this fucking, But yeah, sorry.
Literal fucking animals. But that's like a little sad thing. But I want to remind everybody that when they use these stupid fucking arguments against you, use them against them as an employee. So what? Work harder. Okay, you know what? Clock in late. Clock out early. Fucking, if you work from home, sleep when you're supposed to be fucking working. If they're expecting a certain amount of hours for you to input before it's sent to the client, whatever fucking thing it is. If they require for 20 hours for you to do it for 10, do it for 5. These fucking managers above you don't even know or understand, most likely, the quality which would require 20 hours versus 10 versus 40. Work smart against your wage giver. Because at the end of the day, he is giving you far less than what you are making him. So take it on you to balance it out a bit, and always remember that you can try and fuck them as hard as they're fucking you. Obviously, you don't have all the power, so you cannot fuck them because we live in a system where the owner has more power. But you can still spit back. You can still push back. You can still do your little part to make your life easier, more relaxed. So yes, work smarter, not harder. Somebody buys something for $100, put 90 back in the cash register.
Don't try that in the States. They'll execute you behind the store.
Very valid of you. But no, I was going to say something else. The one last point about the annoying work smarter bullshit is usually working smarter. What that means is there's somebody who already has money from something, like massive amounts of it, because, fucking daddy owns massive amounts of land because, he killed the natives there, or they fucking stole a lot of wealth and then basically just kind of funneled it into something quote unquote respectable, etc., etc. So they, through illicit means, gained a lot of wealth. Maybe not them, but their family at least did. And then they take this wealth and just use it as a advantage to gain further wealth. Money begets money against other people. It's such a stupid and unnuanced. Is that even a word? Can I? Yeah, unnuanced point that. Yeah,
I don't know.
So the amount of fucking issues with it is staggering. But hold on. When people say this stuff, right?
Baby, hold on.
When you start arguing back and forth, they're gonna be like, hold on. We all have the same 24 hours, okay? JT, please, can you let me know? Do we all have the same 24 hours?
I hate it. I hate it. All right, so we all have the same 24 hours. Technically, there are 24 hours in a day. I mean, we all experience the same passage of time thanks to something gravity, relativity, I don't know, sciencey stuff. But if you're trapped in a job where you are paid poverty wages, right? In the United States, for example, a minimum wage earner can't afford a one-bedroom apartment. It's impossible. So if that is your situation, if you work for, say, I don't know, 8 hours a day at Best Buy, and you're like, well, this doesn't cover rent. I need to get another job. So you get another low-wage job at, say, McDonald's and pick up 4 hours there. Well, suddenly most of your waking hours are taken up by these low-wage jobs, which barely give you enough money to afford the barest subsistence. Barely getting groceries, barely being able to afford your utilities, to keep the lights on, to keep your cell phone connected, to put gas in your car because we don't have public transportation. All of these things add up. It takes so much time just to be able to make ends meet that effectively you don't have any time at all. So you have no time to develop skills that, these billionaires say you should develop. You don't have time to go to school. You don't have time to pursue entrepreneurial ideas that these people say you should pursue. So in essence, if you don't have capital to start with, you are at a tremendous disadvantage because capital buys you time, essentially.
Literally.
If you don't have to work, if you do not have to work because you have existing capital, then you have, in essence, more than 24 hours. You've got that time free to do what you want to do with it. It's not consumed by tedious, meaningless labor.
I mean, just ask the person who says everybody has the same 24 hours where they heard it from. And they're going to say like Gary V on YouTube or something. Well, the fact that you have time to watch Gary V on YouTube means that you do not understand just how little time people that actually fucking work their asses off have. Thank you. Fuck Gary V, by the way.
But no, hold on. I was going to say, I don't know if any of you have had the supreme displeasure of speaking to a, upper-class professional working couple. If you've ever had that.
All the time. Every
It's
second
the
day.
most
JT probably
fucking-
as well. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's the most fucking brain-rotting shit because it's especially, okay, one aspect is whenever you speak to the man is always a piece of shit, always, but when you expect some sense, you would want to talk to the woman, and usually the women in these couples are even worse because sometimes they look down. Like they'll say stupid shit like, oh, having children is so easy, like raising my kids was like a breeze for me. And then they don't realize that they had the fucking au pair and they had the fucking nanny and they have a driver to take them to and from work and from school and to their fucking activities, and the mother herself has a fucking personal assistant and a home fucking cook that does everything for her. She has some ethnic minority cleaner that cleans the car and cleans the house and looks after the fucking kids, right? So basically all she had to do was maybe breastfeed, if even that, by the way, because in some fucked up parts, especially third world countries, you still have the weird tradition or activity where basically a woman will have children and then they'll have some fucking poor woman basically do the breastfeeding for them. I guess in some way it reduces the value of this upper class woman or something. It's such stupid fucking. And that's kind of my point. When it comes to these people and they say everybody has the same 24 hours, no. When it comes to education, for example, the Elon Musks of the world basically can afford all the tutors that they need to excel in school, and if need be, they can even bribe, which is very common, by the way. Even in the top, most fancy fucking top 1% of the 1% of schools and universities and whatnot, this sort of shit of bribing and nepotism happens. So you're always going to find a way of excelling in your studies, either through genuine hard work, but with a lot of assistance, or through bribing your way through. And then when you enter into work life, you have the connections of your parents who are massively wealthy that you and your poor parents don't have. You'll have already this massive amount of capital that you can throw around to invest or just play around with.
And even the self-confidence.
Yeah.
The difference between Yale and where you studied, Hakeem, or where you studied, JT, or where I studied, is, let's be fucking honest, but 10 to 20% in the fucking curriculum. But when you have Yale as your diploma and you walk into a room, you walk in very differently than somebody with a diploma from fucking Wisconsin, It's a big fucking...
Despite the fact that the quality of education is usually not that fucking different.
Exactly.
Usually it's measured by output of research, and that's fucking such a bullshit point because usually these universities have larger endowments, so they have more money to dedicate to all that bullshit. It gets very complicated, but TLDR, there's very little difference, especially in modern university education. But one thing that, just to build up, the job thing, I think, is the most important one, because how many people, probably JT, because this is more common in the US. Actually, no, this might be more common in the third world, but that's an interesting conversation. How many people do you guys know that have basically, they're absolute fucking losers? They haven't done anything with their fucking life, but they got a very nice, high-paying, cushy job because daddy's a fucking high-level manager at some company, or, this sort of shit. Yeah. I can't. There's maybe over 2 or 3 dozen that I know.
Yeah.
of people with no redeemable fucking self qualities whatsoever, who are the fucking, they do the pills and whatnot because, they're rich and bored and they have fucking bad company as friends. Fuck those people, right? No redeeming qualities whatsoever. And then, fucking daddy's a CEO, so they get a $400,000 a month fucking job, and daddy's fucking rental properties and all that kind of shit. Yeah.
I mean, those people aren't even happy. Like, capitalism hurts them, obviously not as much as it hurts a working class person, but it literally takes away their control over actually what will happen throughout their own life. They were born as daddy's little son or daughter, and they will die, as in most cases, as daddy's little son or daughter. So in this, maybe I'm being too fucking philosophical here, but in a way the system does hurt the wealthy as well, in ways that they themselves don't even understand it does.
Yeah, no, the nuance is very much appreciated. Sorry, Jay, to go on.
No, yeah, I think there's something to that. I mean, if you look at the Fox News guy, Rupert Murdoch, who recently stepped down and passed it on to his son, you got to wonder, like, does the son actually want to do this? What does he think of this? I mean, well, fuck both of those people. They're evil. But on the other hand, like, yeah, the son's going to be remembered as the son of Rupert Murdoch, the guy who started this great empire, and he's just going to, fade into nothingness, and everyone will remember his dad and not him. But yeah, I know.
But it's easy and comfortable to fade into nothingness when you're literally when you're surrounded by unfathomable pharaohic levels of wealth. But yes, go on. Sorry, you gonna say something?
Well, I was just gonna say, yeah, you were correct that I do know, or at least have met before a good number of people who, just by virtue of what their parents do, now have a very comfortable existence. Like they work for their parents. They had their down payment on their house paid. So they just got to leapfrog over their working class brethren and landed comfortably in the lap of luxury. So yeah, definitely a problem.
I bought my first fucking 4-room house in central New York at the age of 19. What have you been up to?
The fucking Snapchat.
Here's how I did it.
Here's how I did it.
Daddy bought it.
Fucking had great ideas. Some are even honest with it. There's this new type of rich kid, the YouTuber, that's like doesn't even hide it. He's like, yeah, Dad bought me the 17th Ferrari.
Anyways, moving on. This is another favorite of these people. Whenever you try to criticize them and then they realize that, they're kind of losing ground, they're gonna usually fire back with, but these billionaires, they give so much to charity. They're philanthropists. They're such good people. Such good people.
They're full-on rapists.
I know they took pictures with with Epstein, all right, at his island, but I promise you, he was there to fish. He was there to fish.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
First of all, have you people forgotten how to do math? Like, Jeff Bezos went to some gala recently, and everyone was making donations, and he gave very reluctantly, after everyone else did, he gave $500,000 to whatever charity this was. And people in the room literally groaned because they're like his peers. They're also incredibly wealthy people. And they groaned because they understand just how tiny a fraction of his mountains of wealth that $500,000 is. Like, someone said he gave less money in that $500,000 than he made while pretending to eat his dry chicken for 2 minutes at the gala. Any of us could go out and give $10 to a homeless guy on the street and have done more based on our class standing than Jeff Bezos did at that gala.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly right. If I remember correctly, I think it was $22. If you have given $22 in any charity or to a homeless person or something in a 1-year period, given average household income on the United States, then you have, by percentage of your wealth, given more to charity than the vast majority of billionaires have. It's ridiculous.
Like 50 billionaires, bro.
But yeah. So it's a stupid point. And by the way, of course, we have to remember that the reason they give to charities is twofold. Number one, the money that they're giving is unearned. Okay, it's all again through surplus extraction and through wage theft and a dozen other methods of illicit gain of wealth. But also, second is a lot of them use this as tax write-offs. They're benefiting a lot more than they're giving away. So or they set up bullshit fucking foundations which they kind of give to their kids. So it's a way a roundabout way of avoiding taxes while simultaneously funneling money into a relative's bank account or some shit like this.
Without having to pay the inheritors tax and stuff.
Exactly.
For every $3 that 1%ers in the United States contribute to quote-unquote philanthropy, the federal government loses $1 in tax revenue. So for every $3 donated, the federal government loses $1 in tax revenue. They are literally scamming you out of your own money by quote-unquote giving you money.
Yeah, and those people also always say like, well, you know what, it's still a lot of money. Like $500,000 is a lot of money. That can do a lot of good in the hands of the right charity. And that last bit is key, because most of the time these charities, like you guys said, are either fraudulent or just straight up money laundering, or not actually doing much good, like Salvation Army, for example. It's just tax write-offs. So whenever you see billionaires giving money to some charity or philanthropy group, look into it. Just give it a quick Google search. I guarantee you will find it's a scam, or it's just a big way for the rich to save money.
Exactly, and don't forget that after they become very massive philanthropists that are respected by the community and by the political class, they end up getting control over the public policy-making process itself. I mean, the think tanks, the institutions, the organizations which you guys mentioned, the wealth funds, they shape and kind of distort everything that we define as political discourse. You know, they define the bounds of what gets discussed and what gets ignored. And boys, let me quote none other than Warren Buffett's son, of all people. I don't want people to perceive us as some kind of jealous commies who don't have what it takes to make it and make crazy money. That's why we're talking about this shit. So, yes, Warren Buffett's son stated, "You'll see heads of state meeting with investment managers and corporate leaders, all of them searching for answers with their right hand to problems that others in the room have created with their left. And their answers, Buffett charges, almost always keep the existing structure of inequality in place." Ladies and gentlemen, when the son of America's least hated billionaire can see this and openly state this, why do you, Jimmy, living in famous-ass Wisconsin suburbia on 7 mortgages and 10 alimony payments, think you live in a just, opportunity-rich, democratic landscape? Give me a break and stop it with all the Kool-Aid drinking, okay? And like Buffett's son, Buffett Jr. or whatever, actually very wisely dubs this comforting charade so-called conscience laundering. Ooh. Philanthropy helps the wealthy feel less torn about accumulating more than any one person could possibly need. They sleep better
more than one person
at night.
More than most nations. Yeah,
exactly.
More than most nations, man. The pharaohs, like again, the reason I like this example is because number one, it's historically accurate, and number two, Wolf used it with a lot of, let's say,
government
pathos.
does stuff.
Yeah, government does stuff. But yeah, it's like, yeah, it's wealth that makes the pharaohs blush. I just wanted to say though, no offense to the guy in Wisconsin. Shout out to you, my friend. Okay, we all love you, Habibi.
We do, seriously. Favorite commenter.
Honestly,
Agreed.
Yeah. I love how I'm having this fucking 5,000 mile. Is that even? It's probably much more than that. Fucking long form of discussion with you through these stupid fucking podcasts. But now, my favorite argument, and of course the favorite argument of the people who usually, this is the last one. This is the last bullet they have in the chamber. So let's dunk on it. But they risked so much. They risk for them and their businesses to get off the ground. They risk long hours of labor. They risk. Woe is the billionaire who risks. So can you please give me your opinion on the risk argument?
All right. So risk is when you go out on your own with nothing in your pocket and, try to take care of your family. That's risky. What is not risky is receiving $300,000 from your parents, or $1 million for your parents, or in Elon Musk's case, $4.9 billion in government subsidies. This is also, of course, the guy who just said that we should get rid of all government subsidies. So that's the thing. Like they
go ahead. Wasn't he also the guy who wrote, "Oh, Bernie's a taker, not a
Yeah.
maker," or some
Yeah.
fucking shit?
It's like, my guy,
Fuck Bernie Sanders. Okay,
You
actually,
wouldn't be here
sorry.
without these government subsidies. Like it would, your rockets would explode on the launch pad. Like everything you do, there's no risk in what you do except looking like an asshole, which you always do anyway. It's like, come on.
Honestly. What annoys me about this idea is exactly this. You do nothing but take. You take from the government, you take from your workers, you take from like literally every aspect of society, and you have the gall, the fucking audacity to be like, yes, but I am a maker. Fucking eat my ass. But no. I really don't like this argument because it kind of presupposes that only the business owner risks. But actually think about it. When a person starts a business, usually they're already fairly wealthy. There's this stupid idea of, small business owner with their, mom and pop fucking, they collect $25,000 to start their fucking, I don't know, dragon dildo store, to use a previous episode's example, right? That's not the reality. The vast majority of successful businesses are run by people who already have massive amounts of wealth, or at least have some form of access to massive amounts of wealth, right? And these people, if their business was to go under, they'd stand to lose some money, probably a lot of money, but their living standard generally will probably not change. They're not going to suddenly go from flying private jets to working McDonald's, right? They might have to, fucking the horror, the fucking, the humanity that they would have to fucking, I don't know, reduce from a 23 bedroom mansion to a 19 bedroom mansion, right? Like, if they would even lose money at all, which most of the time it's all like held up in insurances and whatnot, that they'll find some stupid way of writing off their losses and all that kind of shit. But the people who work at this business, it'll be a man or a woman or both, maybe a couple who works, their kids are going to local schools, their entire lives are set up around the existence of this particular business. If it were to go under, then their whole lives are fucking messed up. They have a mortgage on the house that they won't be able to pay. Maybe they have loans on a car or something. They have student loan payments that they won't be able to pay back or to meet. They'll have difficulties educating their children, maybe especially if it's around university time and shitholes like the US don't have fucking free education, etc., etc. The idea that it's only the business owner that risks is so myopic. It's stupid. It's you must be intentionally blinding yourself to the realities of the world if you think some dude with fucking $30 million all of a sudden started a business that failed is going to be the one who truly suffers when the business goes under.
And it forgets, like, okay, you're risking with what? You're risking with eons and eons of human information and civilization built on top of each other. The car you take to the garage where you invent the new fucking MacBook is driven on a road that is built by your community. The pieces of tech that you inject into your iPhone, 75 or what it was, 65% of it was created for government and military purposes, again funded by taxpayers' money. Sure, you can throw around the argument if it's your great brilliant idea and you took so many risks in order to create it, but there are so many thousands before you that have taken even greater risks for you to even be able to sit there in your garage and create what you're creating, that you owe society and civilization a debt which you should pay, but through your idea, and not expect that your idea should pay you for a lifestyle so lavish that, as Hakim said, that the pharaohs would be jealous of you. It is an argument that shoots itself in the foot every time it is used, both because of the factors and facts that you guys said, but also because of the key concept that ideas do not exist in bubbles. Risk does not exist in a bubble. It is always a next step in a very, very long chain of events which have led you to be where you are. Unfortunately, instead of being grateful that they even have the ability to create what they are creating and then share it with society, they think because they were the first ones to do so, they deserve the full wealth which this thing creates. It's at the end of the day, the simplest, most rudimentary question of pure individualism versus community. And the answer for everybody with half of a brain and, more importantly, half of a soul is community.
Exactly right. Very beautifully put. Very eloquent. Ashtidik, as we say. The point, I think, the TLDR of all that is the contributions of every minute aspect in society actually are what make up the whole, right? In a very dialectical sense. Think about it as a water heater, right? Or water boiling. It takes it slowly gets warmer and warmer until the phase change in which the liquid changes into a gas. But all those little small physical reactions that take place within the boiling water are what then lead into this phase change. There's such a massive amount and society is very similar in that regard. You who thinks you created some fucking, thing that's going to save humanity or the next big thing has been built off of, like Yugopnik said, government subsidies and the individual labor of the thousands upon tens of thousands that work under you, and plus millions that have preceded you in every step of the way. So it's very, very like the hubris of the idea. But also the final point is, in case anybody gets this wrong, we as communists are not against compensation, fair compensation for people who do something that is remarkable or something that is of merit, right? And this is reflected across even all socialist societies. The highest paid professions within the Soviet Union, for example, were highly scientific ones. For example, professors within universities, professors of medicine, physics, mathematics, etc., as well as those of the arts, writers and certain artists and stuff like that, amongst other things. But this reflects the very idea that those who contribute the most to society in some way or the other would be compensated. The idea just is that they shouldn't be compensated to the level that makes them, have to, if you were to work the 2,030 years or whatever that JT mentioned, you wouldn't even be able to make a fraction of.
But I think that leads really well into talking about what role billionaires really play in society. Because we've talked about they're not innovators, they're not heroes, they don't really provide much of anything, they take. So really the only conclusion that can be drawn is that these people are, at base, parasites. They leech off of society in every conceivable way. They steal from their workers. They take money from the government and claim it's all their own hard work. And what they do is tremendously detrimental to the entire species. But that's not the only thing. I mean, the ultra-wealthy, they also hold the U.S. government hostage, and I'm sure other countries too, but it's most noticeable here in the States, I'd say. Like, they'll threaten capital flight if they think they can get a tax break out of it. Like, Elon left California to come to Texas, hooray me, and he'd leave the country if he could make more money elsewhere, which currently he can't because the United States is incredibly lucrative for people like him. So they get to basically write the laws that benefit not the rest of us, not the majority, but them, a tiny little club of multi-billionaires, that a level that no one could ever really hope to reach. It's all being consolidated in fewer and fewer hands. Each time there's a crisis, vast sums of money are transferred from average people to these guys, to the billionaire class. They literally profit off of people suffering and dying. Like this pandemic, COVID is the perfect example. Like billionaire wealth increased by 70%. 70%. That's like $2.1 trillion during the pandemic. All the while,
we live in a democracy, guys. There's no dictatorship of the bourgeoisie. You Marxists and your weird you're just ideologues. You're demagogues. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, the truly democratic United States and its political representatives have brazened the golden path towards human equality and liberation, which is the doubling of billionaire wealth in a little under a year.
Okay, that sounds right to me. Yeah, I've changed my mind. I'm a capitalist stan now. No, it's disgusting, honestly. I mean, during that same period that they increased their wealth by $2.1 trillion, average people, they lost their jobs, they lost their homes, and for hundreds of thousands of people, they lost their lives. And all for profit, all just to make a tiny little club that little bit richer.
So in conclusion, the billionaires in society are the ones who actually contribute the real value. We should be good little workers, honest little workers. Okay, you should strive to work harder, to work for a lower wage. Of course, you wanna satisfy that manager, don't you? You want your CEO to buy the next Ferrari model, don't you?
Be thankful to your
Okay.
boss. Work extremely hard, 20 hours a
Retweet
day.
Elon Musk's tweets. Okay.
And make sure that you work 20 hours a day so that your boss can buy a new Porsche.
And don't forget, of course, that the market always will fill a need, and invest in crypto.
Well, there you go. That's it for
They're
today. That's all
they're
of our
shitting on
advice.
crypto all the fucking time. Crypto's not that fucking bad, except burning the whole planet down to the ground. But, you know,
Yeah, except for
Please,
that little
okay.
bit.
make some money, man. Do you. You do you, man. Sell
Burning
some
a
crack.
hole-
Fucking do some
Burning
crack.
a hole in the ozone layer to move numbers around in a computer. Yes, big thumbs up.
This has been the Deprogram. I'm JT.
I'm Hakeem.
And I'm Ugopnik. Masturbate on your boss's time.